Good morning, everybody. I want to start off this episode with this little tidbit of information. There's this narrative out there that if you support Trump, some of you out there might claim that he exaggerates, or you might give in to somebody who tells you he's a liar by saying, no, he just exaggerates. He's a salesperson. And if you hate Trump, you might think he's lying, period. Let me put this to you, and you guys can debate this. What if the man's already won the fight? What if him being in office puts the shiver in his enemy? Can't that be a possibility? When he talks the way he talks with the bravado that he brings, sure, he's a salesman. Sure, he's been a successful business person in the past. But what if he's already won the battle? The battle I'm speaking about is against the elite of this world, the corporate CEOs that have been untouchable while they lobby all of our politicians, Republican and Democrat, and all over the world to shape the reality of the world according to their needs and wants. He's already won, folks. He's untouchable. Trust the plan. And if you have trust in God, and if you could trust in the fact that this man, Donald Trump, was chosen to lead this country at this pivotal time, and in fact lead the world, because whoever leads this country is the leader of the free world. Trust the plan and have faith. Let's get into episode 3. Merry Christmas, listeners. Another great week has passed. Washington, D.C. is in a chaotic mood. They're definitely going to be getting a lot of cold this Christmas. It's been another great week, especially if you're paying attention to the details of what's been happening in this country. A lot of you out there might be consumed with this lie that because the House, quote unquote, impeached President Trump, that he's no longer president. Mike Pence is now our president. Which, if you really hated Trump, you're really going to hate Mike Pence. But that's beside the point, because Trump is still your president, my president, and the greatest president in the whole world, in the history of the world. So I'm in a good mood, because Nancy Pelosi decided to hold off on transferring the impeachment report or the impeachment articles to the Senate. Now, legally, for those that actually study civics and know the way the government works, until she decides to transfer these articles, Trump is technically not impeached. Now, why hasn't she decided to do this? Why hasn't she transferred over the articles? Because she knows as soon as those documents get into the Senate, there are two routes this can go. Republicans have the majority of the Senate, right? So Mitch McConnell's setting the tone for what could happen. One of those tracks is the possibility that we might have a Senate trial that will not only go into Joe Biden and Hunter Biden's corruption, publicly exposing their lies and misdeeds and Obama's ignorance to all of these lies, but it can get even deeper. We could start talking about how corrupt our embassies can be. We could start talking about how corrupt some NGOs can be. George Soros. What's been happening in the Ukraine over the last 20 years to make it one of the worst, most corrupt countries in the world? Another route this could go is Mitch McConnell could say, all right, thank you for the articles. I quit. I'm going to toss all these in the garbage and see you later. You just wasted everybody's time. We already knew what the Democrats have been planning since Trump got elected. They've been wanting to get him out of office any way they can. They tried with Russia, calling him a Russian agent. I don't know the logic on this, guys. He's a Russian agent 1 minute, the next minute he's colluding with the Ukraine. The Ukraine and Russia hate each other, enemies. Pick a lie and stick with it. But they tried it with the Russia hoax. Then they brought in Mueller. Super non-biased, right? Mueller is a great, upstanding military man who served his country eloquently and regally. The guy is bought and paid for deep state. He went ahead and hired 13, that eventually became 18, Democrat biased lawyers to help him on his endeavor in search of a crime. And guess what he found after 2.5 years and $40 million? Shit. He found nothing. He found nothing. If that FBI was directed at you, trying to find a crime in your past and equate it to treason, none of us would have come out of that scot-free. Now, one thing that this whole impeachment sham is doing for the country, which I think is incredibly positive, is we will definitely have a landslide on November 3rd, 2020. The poll numbers do not lie. You now have moderate Democrat voters that are polling for Trump. They don't know where this is all going. How can this Democrat Party swing so far left where they want illegal migration to be a natural thing, where they want them to vote, where they want them to get driver's license, give them free health care? The Democrat Party has lost its damn mind. And the voters get it. Americans, listen, I have faith in the public. I have faith in humanity. When you present them a bowl of shit, they're going to tell you that's a bowl of shit. They're not going to sit there and gobble it up, no matter how brainwashed some of us may be. Especially those that listen to the media and watch these left-wing shows and the SNLs of the world and the Rachel Maddows of the world. I have more faith in those guys to wake up from the dream that they've been living in for so long, like I did, than I do in the independents, let's say. Because when you swing that far to one side and the looking glass breaks, the bubble you've been living in breaks, you have only one way to go, and it's usually an equal and opposite reaction the other way. You're going to be just as far on the right side of things as you were on the left side of things. Have faith. Things are looking good. Landslide 2020, Trump 2020, Trump 2024, 2028, and so on and so forth. We got this, guys. We got this. There's a reawakening of America, of the real values, the constitutional values that we bring to the table that nobody in the history of the world has been able to do. We are the freest country, and once we get rid of this corrupt media, our potential is limitless, and we don't need a pill to do that. We will be untouchable. Put us in a ring and see who comes out victorious. What I love most about this impeachment, as Q said, 2019 is the year of the boomerang. What goes around comes back around. And when it comes back around on the Democrats and on the establishment, both R's and D's, I'm speaking on the Democrats only because of the impeachment, but don't forget the McCains of the world. Don't forget the George Bushes of the world. Don't forget the Mitt Romneys. These people are just as much establishment as Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, crying Chuck. But when it comes back on them, oh my goodness, the damage they're going to face. It's deeper than just shame and embarrassment to their reputation. The Democrat Party, as we know it, will cease to exist come 2020. They'll be so minimal, so brutally destroyed that they're going to have to pick up the pieces and figure out how they're going to reemerge. I even think we're going to get to a point where the two-party system is shattered, when both parties are exposed for the corruption and for the rigging of the electoral system. We might become a Scandinavian country in the sense that we have multiple parties to choose from, where real freedom of election can take place. The media sold us that 2016 was a choice between the lesser of two evils, Crooked Witch of the West and Donald Trump, the rich billionaire macho man that takes no BS from anybody and has no respect for immigrants and migrants. Oh my God, all the BS they were selling us. And we had to choose. And you know what? Let's choose Hillary, because at least she's a woman. Like we chose Obama. At least he's black. He's going to change the world. He's different. Listen, the truth of the matter is Donald Trump is the most righteous, most honest, most brutally honest president we've ever had, and the one that's going to lead us to the biggest transparency of government we've ever seen in the history of this country. If you heard last week's episode, you might remember that I touched on the USMCA. It crossed another crucial point in getting passed. It's not there yet 100%, but let's say it's 90% there. The reason why this is such a big trade deal, maybe the two reasons, is because, first of all, our leverage with China will be strengthened. When we have a trade deal with this hemisphere, probably the biggest trade deal in the history of the world, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong on that, but it's $1.4 trillion worth of trade every year. What does that do to our position in negotiating with China? China is already in a corner. They had the worst year in 57 years for a reason, right? This would have never been imaginable 3 years ago. China was supposed to bypass America as the number one country by 2020. It would have definitely happened if Hillary got in. That was the plan. The plan was to allow a communist country to take over, become number one, to show the rest of the world that this is how you should govern your people. By slave labor, by a lack of freedom of speech, a lack of freedom to practice a religion. Your religion is the government. You worship Xi Jinping, Winnie the Pooh, not God. That was supposed to be the next phase. That was the timeline we were on. And you might now think, all right, I can start to see why this guy Ali loves Trump. Because it wasn't just a matter of, oh, I like the guy for what he does and how he talks and how cocky he is. It's way beyond that, people. Wake up to the truth of the world, the reality of the world, the things that they don't teach you in your colleges and in your high schools because they're indoctrinated and paid off by the same Chinese government that I'm talking about. America is number one again and will be for the foreseeable future. USMCA will ensure that in our negotiations. Phase one of the China deal is almost done, almost signed on paper because of the developments in this USMCA trade deal. The second reason why this is such an important trade deal is because it starts to bring back in big numbers America's manufacturing base. See, Donald Trump knows that a country that does not manufacture and create its own products and is an importer, especially in America, as we've been known to be a consumer nation, we import our goods, we import our labor, does not function for long, does not survive for long. We have no base. We used to. When America used to prosper, we had a thriving manufacturing base. But since the end of World War II, we became a charity nation. We became the country that spent its money on rebuilding countries that have been devastated by the war. Europe, for the most part in this case, and then it eventually became Vietnam and Southeast Asia after that war, and then Korea, and then and then China 25 years ago. It's never ending. We became a piggy bank for the world to steal from. Our military became a police force for the rest of the world. Instead of us keeping our soldiers here and our Marines men, etc., in this country, protecting it, protecting our borders, we're protecting the borders of other countries. And the people that live in those countries don't want us there. It's the corrupt governments and elite in those countries that want that type of presence. Why? Because with these massive military budgets, the billions and billions that are spent in each one of these wars, and who are the people getting kickbacks? I'll give you an example. Rand Paul came out with a story in one of his speeches in the Senate where a gas station was built in Afghanistan during this 18-year-long war for $42 million. I don't know much about building gas stations, but I know $42 million is a bit much. Here's where it gets worse. That gas station was built as a natural gas station. Now here's the kicker. Nobody in Afghanistan drives a car that runs on natural gas. Why was it built? I'll tell you why it was built and why it cost $42 million. Because whoever was building it kept 30 of the $42 million. This is what we've been doing with our taxpayer dollars. The Pentagon was not created for this. When Eisenhower used to warn us about the military-industrial complex, this is the type of behavior we're talking about. Empire destruction, empire building. It's not our role. Let the people of those countries decide how they want to be governed. And that's the reason why the Middle East has looked like it's looked for the last 50 years. Of course, with governments in the Middle East that were selling their people out. I'm so glad and proud to see Lebanon finally waking up to the truth. The USMCA will look like a template for every country that wants to be sovereign in the world, that wants to take back its freedom, take back its will, take back its nationality. Nationalism is coming back, and in this sense, because if you create your own products and you have pride in your nationality, nobody will have the balls to interfere. In the case of Lebanon, Iran would have never interfered in your country if you weren't selling your country out. This is where we're headed. This is where we're headed, not just in America and in Lebanon, all over the world. At the UN, when Trump gave his speech a couple of times, he focused on the idea that globalism was dead. What globalism did is it reorganized the manufacturing base and the supply chains associated with it to China. Imagine it like a piece on a chessboard. Took it from America and moved it to China. And all the supply chain moved with it. The same thing was happening in the Middle East. We weren't producing much anymore. What do we make? What do we make? Beirut beer? Little microbreweries that the hipsters enjoy? It affected the world. It affected the world. Why? Because the people controlling the manufacturing of the world, the small goods and the more valuable goods, technology, etc., were communist, blaspheming communists. So what kind of corruption was that breeding in the world? If I wanted to get a certain product, I had to go to the corrupt Chinese. If I wanted to sell to the Chinese market, I had to sell myself out to the corrupt Chinese, sell my business out to the corrupt Chinese. You all should pray that the manufacturing base continues to shift from China to America, because at least in America, you have a people that loves themselves, loves God, and loves honesty and righteousness. Some of our corporate CEOs and government officials weren't like that, I'll be honest. But the people on the ground are good people, good, hardworking people that only want to provide for their families and pursue happiness. So Lebanon, get to work. I want to touch on something that happened in Lebanon this week. The government has chosen not to listen to the protesters and continue this stance of hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. They've went ahead and picked a prime minister designate. We'll call him a prime minister elect. That's a word we're familiar with here. Now, this guy is a doctor. He's a technocrat. He's a specialist in his field. And that's what the people wanted, right? They wanted a specialist government with technocrats, meaning experts in their individual fields taking over offices that they can actually make better, right? Similar to what we did with Trump, where we put in a businessman to run a country like a business. But in their case, it's more on the health minister should be a doctor, a practicing doctor, let's say, with a stellar reputation. All right, it works. It works. The problem with this doctor is Hezbollah seems to be very happy with him. The Free Patriotic Movement seems to be very happy with him. These groups are the main groups the protesters want out. These groups are the same groups that the protesters blame for Lebanon's woes. The protesters went back into the street to fight back against this choice. They're met with rocks being thrown at them by those groups that I mentioned before. While the protest movement itself, the revolution of Lebanon, is peaceful, they're being met with violence. But you know what that shows me? It shows me that they've already won. The revolution is already won. You've backed those people into the corners where they belong. And in that corner, they're going to have to do a lot of thinking. The money's drying up. The weapons are drying up. What are we going to do? Iran is looking like North Korea with all the sanctions that are placed on it. They can't fund us anymore. What are we going to do? We're going to have to deal. We're going to have to negotiate. The Middle East of yesterday is no longer. Right now, we're just seeing we're seeing the tectonic plates hit each other in a sense. The past and the future rubbing against each other. But at some point, there's going to be an earthquake. And in this earthquake, don't expect a lot of tragedy. Don't expect a lot of death. In this earthquake, the people will wake up stronger the next day. The people will wake up greater than they were the day before. Because it's a battle between good and evil. This isn't a battle between brother and brother, or this political party versus this political party. This is a battle between good and evil. Which side are you on? On the side of greed? Are you on the side of violence? Or are you on the side of debate and conversation and negotiation for the betterment of everybody? I like to think I'm on the side of negotiation. That's just me. Be patient, Lebanon. Be patient. Things are happening that will never be talked about in the news. If they're not talking about it in our news here in America, you could be damn sure they're not talking about it in Lebanon. But things are happening, and they're happening in the right time that they're supposed to. Do not lose faith. Keep up the fight, and you'll see that in this new day and age, the good guy wins. Justice prevails. In the age of Pisces, the last 2,000 years, it seemed like evil was in control of our justice. It seemed like evil was in control of our media, of our governments, and we had no say. We were powerless. But in the last 20 years, with the advent of the internet and social media, the scales were shifted. We're entering into the age of Aquarius, which is interesting for me to get into astrology for a bit, because I don't know much about it, but these bigger themes kind of coincide. We're going from the age of belief to the age of knowledge. There's a big difference there. We're going to know our past, our present, and our future. We're going to know what our governments are doing. Transparent governance is a thing of the future, and it's almost here. It's an exciting time ahead. Keep the faith, Lebanon. So I wanted to end this episode on a positive note. It seems like everything I talk about is positive. I don't know. I may come off as naive, guys, but trust me, I have my bad days too. And usually what I tell myself in those bad days is everything is going well, everything is going good. Don't mind the thoughts, the negativity that comes up in your head. That's the devil trying to fool you. But the reason I'm so positive is because I see the bigger picture. The Space Force is officially a thing. Last week, we talked about all these military officials talking about declassifying, claiming they want the government to give up its secrets on technologies and on energy sources that we could use that would give us unlimited energy, transportation technology that could get us anywhere on the planet in an hour. Man, my ex would have loved that ability. My ex used to be in Lebanon, I'd be here, and we would talk about this long distance and how hard it was on us. If we can get to one another in an hour, it would have probably saved the relationship. But it's all good. It's all good. I'll blame Trump then. Space Force is a thing, and it's going to be the vehicle to declassify these technologies. Think of what the military has done for technology and for humanity over the last 30, 40 years. The internet was given to us through the military. Chips, fiber optics. Where would our lives have been if they hadn't released these technologies? Now, granted, I don't think they released enough. Let's be honest. I want it all. If there are some that have the ability to do these things and to travel there and to do that and to cure this, I want to have it. This concept of we need to lower the population is a concept given to us by the evil establishment, wanting us to think that the world is ending and the only way to survive is to have less people on the planet. When in reality, the more people, the better. The more people, the more prosperous, the better our existence will be. The longer we live, the better our existence will be. If we can make this planet into heaven on earth, literally, how biblical would that be? Let's bring back the garden. Stop lying to us about our past. Stop lying to us about who we are, what we are, and the Space Force is going to do just that. So I wanted to leave you with that little bit of good news for this week ahead. The upcoming events seem kind of blurry to me over the next week. I don't know what Trump's got up his sleeve, but you know, it's Christmas week. So I expect it to be a quieter week. I expect to kind of write out my notes for the next week's episode based on more ethereal, more meta concepts, unless Trump surprises us with some big revelation. But I hope everybody that's listening is enjoying what I have to offer. The views or the listens have been great. I would really appreciate it if you would share to your friends, whoever's listening out there. Share it. Let people listen, even if they don't agree with me. Those are the people I want to listen to me. For one reason, imagine how little of my opinion they get in their everyday life. Imagine how little of my type of opinion, too. I don't talk identity politics, but these people think like that. All they think about is this guy's color, this guy's sexuality, this girl's this girl's that, all based on their appearance, on their sexuality, right? What happens to their whole concept of this world if they hear an ex-Muslim, Middle Eastern, 29-year-old that loves Trump, loves conservative values, and loves God? What are they going to think? I think they might short circuit. So let's have that fun. Let's have those conversations. I don't mind. And especially if you're educated on the topics. Because what I've noticed, the more you're educated on politics, the less you know. It's been episode 3. It's been a shorter episode. I want to test out these shorter episodes, 30 minutes tops. Thank you for listening. I've been Ali. You've been you. It's been Red Zatar. And God bless the world.